You think you know what a gift is, right? It's simple. You give something, someone takes it. But what if I told you that in the eyes of the law, it's this incredibly complex journey? We're talking centuries of tradition, family duties, and really specific rules. So yeah, let's dive in and see how this super simple act gets, well, complicated.
So that brings us to the big question. Is a gift really as simple as it seems? I mean, what really makes it stick, legally speaking? Is it just your intention, the actual physical handover, or does it all come down to a piece of paper? Well, the answer, it's not what it used to be. Not by a long shot.
All right, here's our game plan. First, we're going to look at how gifts worked under ancient law. Then we'll jump to the modern legal take on it. And after that, we get into the really interesting stuff. What happens when you try to give a gift to someone who isn't even born yet? And we'll cover the very unique rules around a final deathbed gift.
Okay, let's kick things off with Section 1, Gifting in Ancient Law. We're talking about a time when it was all about duty and, most importantly, possession. This wasn't just about being generous. It was woven into the very fabric of family and responsibility.
So back then, the power to give things away wasn't a free-for-all. You had the Carta, who was the male head of the family. Sure, he could gift property, but, and this is a huge but, he had to make sure the family was taken care of first. That was non-negotiable. And what's really interesting is that women had power here too. They could gift their own personal property, their striton, which gave them a real, even if limited, degree of financial independence.
And this is what I find so fascinating about the old system. You can pretty much forget about lawyers and stacks of paperwork. The law was beautifully simple and direct. As this quote says, you didn't need anything in writing. What mattered, what was absolutely essential, was possession and delivery.
And you can see that principle right here in the source text. It couldn't be clearer. Physical transfer was everything. Paperwork, not so much. The act of actually handing something over, that was the be-all and end-all. That was your proof, your contract, that was the final word. Simple as that.
All right, moving on to Section 2. Now we're fast-forwarding to the modern legal gift. This is where everything changes. That simple physical handover, suddenly it's not enough. The whole legal world shifts its focus from possession to paperwork. So today, a gift has a super specific legal definition, thanks to Section 122 of the Transfer of Property Act. Let's just quickly break that down. It has to be totally voluntary. It's got to be for property that actually exists right now. You've got the giver, the donor, and the receiver, the donee. And here's the kicker. There can be no strings attached, no consideration. And of course, the person on the receiving end has to actually accept it.
And this is the real game changer. Section 123 brings in some really strict formalities. We're talking about a formal document, a registered instrument. It has to be signed by the person giving the gift, and it has to be attested by at least 2 witnesses. Yep, the days of a simple handshake and handover being legally binding are definitely over.
So let's just put it side by side. In ancient law, the key was possession. Seeing is believing, right? But in modern law, the key is registration. It's all about that official stamp. And look, there's a good reason for this shift. Think about it. Registration creates a solid public record. It cuts through the he said, she said of a verbal agreement and gives everyone a level of certainty that just wasn't there before.
Okay, on to Section 3, a gift to the future. This is where things get a little bit mind-bending. What happens if you want to give a gift to someone who, well, hasn't been born yet? Can you do that? The law has some very particular and very interesting answers.
So here's the deal. You can't just write a deed that says, "To my future grandchild." It doesn't work like that. Section 13 of the Transfer of Property Act lays out the steps. First, you have to create a kind of placeholder interest for a living person. Think of it like this. You give the property to, say, your daughter for her life. Then, once that life interest is over, the entire remaining property can go to her unborn child. The key is that the unborn person has to get the whole shebang, not just a slice.
Now, you might be wondering, why all the complicated rules? Well, it's all about preventing property from being locked up in legal limbo forever. The law has this thing called the rule against perpetuity. You can see it referenced here in the source text. It's basically a fail-safe. It ensures that property can't be controlled from beyond the grave for generations and generations. It has to eventually get back into the hands of the living so it can be used and transferred freely.
And for our final section, we're looking at something pretty unique and, honestly, quite profound. It's called Donatio Mortis Causa, which is Latin for the deathbed gift.
It's exactly what it sounds like, a gift made by someone who believes they are at death's door.
So, a deathbed gift is the special legal carve-out. A couple of key things here. It only works for movable property. So think jewelry, a car, not a house. And the whole thing is conditional. A person makes the gift because they believe they're dying from a particular illness. The gift only becomes permanent if they actually die from that illness.
This chart really lays it all out. A regular gift, once it's accepted, it's done, it's final, you can't take it back. A deathbed gift, though, is totally different. It's only final upon the donor's death. And here's the most amazing part. If the person gets better, if they recover from that illness, poof, the gift is automatically canceled. The property goes right back to them, no questions asked.
And this whole concept has its own legal home, right here in Section 191 of the Indian Succession Act. It's really this strange, fascinating hybrid. It's not a normal gift because it's conditional, but it's also not a will because it doesn't need to follow all those strict rules. It's truly a unique legal tool designed for a very specific and very human moment in life.
So when you step back and look at the whole journey, what's the big picture? We've seen a clear evolution, haven't we? We've gone from an informal custom, where a simple handover was enough, to a system that is all about formal, documented certainty. It's a pretty clear reflection of how law itself has changed over time.
Which brings us to one last question to chew on. There's no doubt that all this formalization gives us a ton of certainty and protects people from fraud. But you have to wonder, in our drive to make everything legally airtight, have we maybe lost a little bit of the simplicity, the pure human element of those ancient customs?